Not all demons have horns. Not all monsters hide in the shadows. Some walk beside us, speak like us, even smile at us, but something about them feels wrong. You can't quite explain it, but your instincts whisper a warning, a feeling deep in your gut, telling you to run before it's too late. Some say evil is loud, obvious, but the truth, the most dangerous ones are subtle. They don't need to raise their voice or bare their teeth. They blend in. Until one day you realize they were never really human at all. Here are 6 signs that someone, no matter how normal they may seem, might not be what they appear to be. Subtlety over shock. When we think of something truly evil, our minds often go to the extreme figures from horror movies, villains with terrifying appearances, or creatures lurking in the dark. But the most dangerous kind of darkness doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with flashing red lights or eerie background music. It moves quietly, blending in so perfectly that you don't even realize it's there until it's too late. This is the essence of real fear, not the things that jump out at you, but the things that whisper, the things that feel slightly off, but never enough for you to be certain. The unsettling presence of someone who doesn't quite react like others do. The way they hold your gaze just a little too long. The way their smile seems calculated rather than natural. It's never loud. It's never obvious. But something inside you senses it. That's why true evil, when it exists in the real world, is never theatrical. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't rage or scream. Instead, it watches. It waits. It manipulates. A truly dark presence doesn't start with violence or threats. It starts with trust, with charm, with a slow, careful infiltration of your world. Before you know it, you feel tied to them in ways you can't explain. The greatest trick evil ever played was convincing the world that it looks a certain way, that it's easy to spot. But reality tells a different story. The ones to fear are not always the loudest in the room. In fact, they are often the quietest. They don't demand attention. Instead, they let you come to them. They don't argue. They persuade. They don't need to chase you. They make you walk willingly into their trap. It's subtle. So subtle that you might never even see it coming. And that is exactly what makes it so dangerous. Calm, poised delivery. Fear is not always loud. In fact, the most unsettling kind of fear comes not from shouting or rage, but from an eerie, calculated calmness. When someone is truly dangerous, they do not need to raise their voice. They do not need to react in the way normal people do. Instead, they remain poised, composed, even in situations where any normal person would break. Imagine standing in front of someone who has just been exposed, caught in a terrible lie, or confronted with something horrifying. Most people would show some reaction: denial, anger, nervousness, or at the very least discomfort. But some, they do not flinch. Their expression remains unreadable, their voice smooth and controlled. There is no panic in their eyes, no hesitation in their speech. It's as if they are merely watching, calculating, waiting for the right moment to turn the situation in their favor. This kind of stillness is unnatural. It is not the calmness of wisdom or strength. It is something else entirely. It is the calm of a predator, a person who does not experience emotions in the way others do, a person who can lie without blinking, deceive without breaking rhythm, and manipulate without the slightest hesitation. They do not respond to threats with fear. Instead, they meet them with amusement, as if they are observing a game, one that they are always one step ahead in. No matter what happens, they never seem truly unsettled. Even when their world is crumbling, they act as if they are in control, and perhaps in their mind they are. This kind of poise is what makes them so dangerous. Because we are used to associating fear with obvious signs: shaking hands, stammering speech, defensive behavior. But the ones who are truly dangerous do not show these signs. They do not give anything away. Their calmness makes you second-guess yourself. It makes you question if you are overreacting, if you are imagining things, And by the time you realize the truth, they have already won. They do not need to fight to overpower you. Their presence alone is enough. The way they watch, the way they listen, the way they respond in a way that seems too measured, too perfect. And that, perhaps, is the biggest warning of all. Psychological depth. Evil is not always about violence. It's not always about cruelty in its most obvious form. Sometimes the most dangerous kind of darkness is psychological. It lives in the mind, weaving its way into conversations, relationships, and decisions without ever needing to raise a hand. Some people have an unsettling ability to manipulate reality itself. They do not force, they suggest. They do not argue, they redirect. They do not control with fear alone, but with something far more dangerous: doubt. Imagine speaking with someone and walking away feeling different. Not because they yelled or threatened, but because they made you question things you were once certain of. Your own memory, your own instincts, your own sense of right and wrong. They twist words so subtly that you don't even realize you are being led somewhere until you're already there. This is psychological warfare, and it is far more terrifying than any physical threat, because when someone controls your mind, they control everything. One of the greatest tools of manipulation is gaslighting, the ability to make someone doubt their own reality. A person like this will never simply lie. Instead, they plant a seed of uncertainty. Are you sure that happened? I think you might be overreacting. You always get like this. At first, these statements seem small, insignificant, but over time they become a pattern. You start questioning yourself, second-guessing things that once felt obvious. And once someone has you doubting your own perception, they can make you believe almost anything. They can make themselves the hero. They can make their victims seem like villains. They can rewrite the past, bend the truth, and convince you that they are the only one who truly understands you. And the more you believe them, the harder it becomes to escape. What makes these people so dangerous is not just their ability to deceive, but their complete lack of remorse. There is no guilt in their eyes, no hesitation in their voice. To them, manipulation is not wrong. It is simply a means to an end, a game they have mastered. And the most chilling part? They often know exactly what they are doing. They watch how people react. They study emotions like an outsider looking in, learning how to mimic empathy without ever truly feeling it. They know which words will break you, which silences will make you question everything, which moments to act kind just long enough to pull you back in. They do not need to be physically powerful. They do not need weapons or threats, because their mind is their greatest weapon. And once they are inside your head, escape is no longer as simple as walking away. This is the true depth of psychological evil, not just to hurt, but to make you believe that nothing was ever wrong to begin with. Slow build up of suspense. Fear is most powerful when it creeps in slowly, when it doesn't reveal itself all at once, but instead seeps into the cracks of everyday life. True suspense is not about sudden terror, it is about a gradual realization that something is wrong. It is about a presence that lingers just long enough to unsettle, about moments that feel slightly off but never enough for immediate panic. This is how real fear works. It does not rush. It does not scream. It waits. Imagine meeting someone for the first time. They seem normal, perhaps even charming. They smile, they laugh at the right moments, they say all the right things, but something about them doesn't quite fit. Maybe it's the way they hold your gaze a second too long. Maybe it's how their voice is always just a little too calm, no matter the situation. Or maybe it's something even smaller, something you can't quite name. At first you ignore it. You tell yourself you're overthinking, but then over time the unease grows. You start noticing little things, how they never truly answer direct questions, how their stories don't always add up, how they seem to know exactly what to say to make you doubt yourself. It doesn't happen all at once. There is no single moment where the alarm bells start blaring. Instead, the feeling builds, creeping up on you slowly, like a shadow stretching across the floor as the sun sets. And by the time you realize the truth, you are already deep inside their web. This is the art of suspense. It is not about shock, it is about erosion. The slow, quiet dismantling of certainty. This is how the most dangerous people operate. They do not show their true selves immediately. Instead, they let you trust them first. They let you feel comfortable, safe. And then, little by little, they reveal glimpses of something darker. A cold remark hidden behind a joke. A moment of cruelty disguised as honesty. A reaction that feels inhuman. And yet, even as you notice these moments, something inside you hesitates. Because how can someone who was so kind, so charming, be anything less than normal? That hesitation is their greatest weapon. Because by the time you finally see them for what they are, you are already too close. You have already excused too many things, ignored too many warnings. And the deeper you go, the harder it becomes to leave. This is why true fear is not about loud, obvious terror. It is about the slow realization that something is deeply, unshackably wrong. It is about watching a mask slip, piece by piece, until one day you are left staring into the face of something you can no longer recognize. And when that moment finally comes, you understand the most terrifying truth of all. It was never sudden. It was always there, waiting. A thought-provoking ending. A story, no matter how chilling, loses its power if it ends too cleanly. True fear lingers, it stays with you long after the last word is spoken. The most unsettling realizations are not the ones that provide all the answers, but the ones that leave you questioning everything. Because the scariest part of encountering someone truly inhuman is not just knowing that they exist, it's wondering how many times you've already crossed paths with one without realizing it. Think back. Has there ever been a person who made you uncomfortable for reasons you couldn't explain? Someone whose presence felt wrong, even when nothing they did was obviously bad. A conversation that left you feeling drained, uncertain, or uneasy? Perhaps you brushed it off. Told yourself it was just paranoia, that you were imagining things. But what if you weren't? What if, at some point in your life, you have already met someone who hides behind a mask, someone who plays by different rules, someone who walks among us unnoticed? And if that is true, how will you know the next time it happens? The answer is simple. You won't. Not at first. Because they don't want you to. Not until it's too late.